logic and cheese.
Hello. It's now approximately 9 months since I first thought of MAGE and a couple of months since I announced it to you all. Today's the day. You're going to see the flight of MAGE. Before we get stuck in, I'd like to say massive thanks to everyone who has supported this project. That's donations, super chats, members, 2 very kind sponsors and my amazing patrons. Mr. Sensible is proud that MAGE, the mission above globe Earth, has been sponsored by Bob the Science Guy and his channel, Common Sense Science. I'm also proud that MAGE is sponsored by Arctic Haze and his climate anomaly website. With massive thanks to all my patrons, including new patrons Brian Ramsey, ex-Penguin95, Sharkwork, Stephen York, Uwe Closer, Wee Scott's Dog, Marconius and Jason Ooting, and my newest patrons Kevin Seidel and Doc Brew. Thank you all so very much. MAGE is mission above globe Earth. The idea is to send a payload under a weather balloon to a target height of 39,000 metres. MAGE will have not 1, not 2, but 3 cameras on board. It's got an upward facing camera that will show the balloon, so hopefully we'll see it expand and burst. It's got a standard wide angled lens camera so we get a great view, and then the all important narrow angle camera. This is the MAGE experimental camera. Because this camera only has a 90 degrees field of view, we're not going to get all that terrible distortion that you get with the wide angle cameras. Additionally, we've got 2 taut lines strung across its field of view so that you can check to see if there's any distortion. Each of the cameras has a large SD card, and additional to their onboard lithium batteries, each one has its own dedicated LiPo battery pack. We want to make sure these cameras can last the duration of the flight. Beyond the original GPS tracker, we've installed a second tracker, so we've now got 2 trackers. We do want to make sure that we can recover MAGE. This is a high risk mission. And lastly, just for fun, I'm sending up some cheese for me and some cat biscuits for Arnold. We're both interested to find out what these taste like after they've been up to 39,000 metres and a temperature maybe down to -50 or -60 degrees. But enough of that, let's get back to the equipment itself. Here is one of the early test photographs taken from the narrow angle lens of MAGE. You can see the strings quite clearly against both a dark background and a light background. At this point the camera wasn't securely fastened in and the settings weren't all configured, which is why the lines do not appear parallel and are at a slight angle. Here is a second and better test shot. The lines are extremely clear, and once MAGE reaches its maximum altitude, it's going to be very easy to compare any curve of the horizon to these straight lines, which is what MAGE is all about. Now, I've had many messages of support and emails with various ideas for the MAGE project. I had a particularly useful email from a guy called Andre Puelma. I hope I've said his name correct. Andre is a civil engineer from Chile and loves science, astronomy, physics, geometry, and says that he's a voracious investigator. Now, Andre ran a whole bunch of calculations and came up with this. It's a diagram which shows the curve of the horizon that you would expect with a camera with a 90-degree field of view at a height of 39 kilometres. Now, this is wonderful because once we get up there, we'll be able to overlay this image on the image from the cameras just to see how it matches up. Thank you very much for that, Andre. That's really, really useful. Appreciate it. So at this point we're ready to go. Everything is prepped and we have a launch window of 4 days. Then we're down to looking at weather and predicted landing sites. There are all sorts of things to avoid, like the sea, motorways, airports. Any of these things can put a stop on an attempted launch. So each evening, myself and Q, my technical, high altitude experienced advisor, would get together and discuss the next day. Sunday evening for the Monday looked bad and we decided to scrub that. So we were hoping for Tuesday. Monday evening Q said it doesn't look good for Tuesday. Tuesday I went out and had a look, and this is what I found. Grey, wet, windy. No good again today. Damn. Tuesday evening, looking forward to Wednesday, we had predictions of MAGE landing in the vicinity of a major conurbation and motorways. So again we had to cancel, leaving us with one more day of the launch window. Finally, on Wednesday evening, Q gave me the news that it looked good for Thursday. We decided to hook up again quickly on Thursday morning for a final check. Very early Thursday morning, Q agreed that it looked good. I popped outside and had another look myself. Well, it's Thursday today and it's looking beautiful. Not a breath of wind. Clouds with some gaps in it, so we're going to get some blue sky. Absolutely beautiful. Let's go for MAGE. So finally, all these ups and downs, the nail-biting worry whether we'd be able to launch in the window or not, were over. I packed my gear, headed over to the secret launch site and met with Q. So after a couple of hours driving, we're at the secret launch site for MAGE. Going to set it up on a smooth grassy area and then walk it over to the field for the launch. Q was busy configuring the GPS units, making sure the cameras were okay, and I loaded MAGE. MAGE has been sponsored by Bob the Science Guy and Arctic Haze. Getting it all prepped. So what we're going to do is pop in cheese triangle for me, the mission patch for the lucky winner, and for Arnold a shed load of cat biscuits. Right, we'll get the cameras in, get set up and go for launch. And then it happened. The weather changed. The wind built up. The rain started. Then the rain stopped, but it stayed windy. Then the wind died down and the rain started. Q and I spent around an hour humming and hawing whether we should launch or not. Each time we looked ready to go, the weather changed again. It really looked as though we were going to have to scrub and find a second launch window. However, patience paid off. The wind stopped totally, the rain stopped, and we decided, let's go for it. MAGE had been prepared. The cargo was on board, the cameras were on board, the GPS was set up, the units were tied together. The secondary GPS tied to MAGE, MAGE tied to the parachute, parachute tied to balloon, and we commenced filling it up. A standard 4-pint milk container with the correct amount of water is used as a standby weight in place of MAGE, so that we know that we've got the correct amount of hydrogen to lift MAGE nicely. So having beaten the weather and having MAGE ready to go, we struck our first problem. The plan was that we would film me as I launched MAGE and then wind back, if you like, and show the view from MAGE of me launching it and then the flight up. The first problem was the filming failed. We don't know why, but it failed. So we've not got the external view of the launch. So that's a shame, but it's not the end of the world, because as I launch it, I'm holding MAGE, looking at the camera, and we would still have that view. Only we had a much more serious problem. We have no footage whatsoever from the MAGE experimental camera. This is a lot more serious. All will become clear later on in this video, and you're going to find out what happened to that footage. So let's go for launch. I'll pause the video right at the start and just explain what you can see, and then we go for it. So top left corner, we've got the upward facing balloon cam. Bottom left corner, we've got a timer which will run from the moment I let go of MAGE until the moment it touches the ground again. Finally, on the right hand side, we've got the altitude meter showing MAGE's height in meters above sea level. Constantly during the flight, the GPS units are broadcasting their location, and this data is added to the telemetry file. On its way back down, during the last few hundred meters, MAGE will drop below radio horizon and the data becomes a little erratic. Not having the MAGE experimental narrow angle view, all we've got is this wide angle view. The first thing you're going to see is MAGE being walked forward and released. Let's go for it.
Go MAGE.
It was a really majestic sight, seeing MAGE slowly lift up into the sky. Q and I stood and watched MAGE as she went higher and higher until eventually, at about 500 metres, she disappeared into the lower cloud deck. I'll whiz it forward a little to that point. The crackling noise you can hear is rain. Oh yes, as we launched it started to rain again, but no matter. As MAGE slipped out of sight, we started double checking the predicted landing points. The plan was to drive into the general vicinity, find somewhere for lunch, and then with the updated predicted landing point, rush to the area ready to recover MAGE. Only there seemed to be a slight problem. MAGE should be ascending at a rate of about 5 metres per second, but it was a little low. It wasn't quite as fast as we'd expected. This was affecting the landing. At one point, it predicted the landing right across the UK and out to sea. But then it picked up again. Now, hydrogen behaves differently than helium. The prediction is not quite as accurate because it changes the amount of lift you get from it depending on the height. So at first we weren't too worried. We continued to watch it and an issue became clear. MAGE was definitely not going up at the speed it should do. So Q sought some advice from other people who are experienced in high altitude ballooning. The consensus was we got a puncture, a manufacturing fault, nothing we could have done anything about or known about prior to the launch. Let's skip on forward a bit until we're coming out of the second cloud deck. MAGE's ascent rate became highly variable. The question now was, how high would it go and how far? We decided that there was nothing for it but to set off and try and track it and rescue whatever we could. At about 2,450 metres, MAGE went into the upper cloud deck. Let's whiz forward to see how high it got. The upper cloud deck was very, very deep. MAGE continued climbing more and more slowly until it peaked at 5,287 metres before it started to slowly descend again. What we'll do is we'll jump forward because it did see something interesting on its way back down. At approximately 2,850 metres, MAGE saw snow. It's not entirely unexpected, but it's not something that you see very often in a balloon video. Snow in August. Really interesting stuff. What we do now is jump right forward to the final approach to landing. Still supported by a mostly inflated balloon, MAGE makes a very, very gentle landing. I'll let you enjoy that and pause it at the moment of landing. So at 1 hour, 13 minutes and 49 seconds after launch, MAGE safely touches down. There's an issue though. Normally it would have landed by aid of the parachute. Today it was supported by the balloon. That balloon is still in the air. Now the weight of MAGE is no longer pulling it down, that balloon is acting like a sail. Let's see what happens. It's painful to watch. MAGE is being dragged, bashed, banged, crashed like crazy. It's somewhere during this period that MAGE loses its main experimental camera, which explains why we've got no footage. Eventually, it lifts and gets itself tangled up, awaiting myself and Q in our search for it. MAGE travelled a total of just over 30 miles. When we came across it, it was a little bit of a shock.
There he is, across the road. Oh man.
It was quite cold and raining heavily, and this is the view that greeted us.
So here's MAGE, parachute. Got a bit damaged.
You can see how MAGE has been bashed about. Nearly all of the balsa framework has gone, and as we discover in a few minutes' time, so has the main camera.
And tangled up with a cable. All we got to do is find a way to get him down.
Because MAGE is floating and strung across the road, we decide that the wisest thing is to call the police. We're going to need a road closure to get this down. Unfortunately, midway through the call, the balloon provides less and less lift, and MAGE is getting closer and closer to the traffic. We decide that there's only one thing for it. I stick on a high-vis jacket and stop the traffic, while Q gets MAGE down. With a long pole and some luck, we manage to get MAGE down and let the traffic go again, and survey what is left of MAGE. So that is the end of MAGE. Despite searching the grass verge and the hedgerows and a good look around the field, didn't find the camera. So MAGE has come to an end through no fault of our own, a manufacturing fault. MAGE is no more. Long live MAGE 2. We used about £100 worth of hydrogen. We used a balloon that cost around £120. We lost a camera that's going to cost £150 to replace. But MAGE flew beautifully. It was well balanced. It didn't spin around. The concept is great. So we're going to try again. Now, I was disappointed, obviously, not to get the footage that we wanted. I was disappointed not to have my space cheese. And Arnold here was extremely disappointed he didn't get his space cat biscuits. We've got to do it again. Immediately after this live premiere, I'm doing a live stream where we can discuss this project and MAGE 2. If you're watching this at a later point, the link to that live discussion will be in the description. I hope you'll all join us. It's been a great project. It still is. Look forward to seeing you all again soon. Until then, stay sensible.
Shut up and sit down.